Imagine this. It's a cold November night in 1966. The air is heavy with fog, the kind that clings to your skin and makes the trees look alive in the distance. Two young couples are driving down a lonely road near an old abandoned World War II munitions plant outside Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The headlights cut through the darkness, bouncing across broken fences and silent fields. Then, something steps out of the shadows. They see it, a figure taller than any man, massive wings folded tight against its back, two glowing red eyes that pierce through the night like burning coals. The couples freeze. For a split second, they don't even breathe. One of them whispers, "My God, what is that?" And just like that, the thing spreads its wings. With a horrifying screech, it lifts into the air, faster than the car, swooping low, following them as they floor the gas pedal, praying to make it back into town alive. That was the very first recorded sighting of what would soon become one of the most chilling mysteries of the Appalachian Mountains, the Mothman. Over the next 13 months, Point Pleasant became a town living in fear. More than 100 people reported seeing the same terrifying creature. A winged man, 6 or 7 feet tall, with red glowing eyes and a presence so unnatural, it made even grown men cry out in terror. Witnesses said it wasn't just the size that scared them, it was the feeling. Many claimed that when the creature's eyes locked on you, you felt a deep, sickening dread, like it was inside your head, pulling the breath from your lungs. One witness, a man named Newell Partridge, was at home watching TV one November night when his screen suddenly went black. He heard a high-pitched whining sound outside, something that rattled his roof and shook his walls. Grabbing a flashlight, he stepped outside, and that's when he saw them. Two glowing red circles staring back at him from the dark. His dog, Bandit, charged toward the creature. Partridge yelled after him, but the dog disappeared into the woods and never returned. The next morning, searchers found dog tracks in the dirt, but the tracks ended suddenly, as if the animal had simply been lifted off the ground and carried away. Over and over, stories like this began to spread. Couples chased by the creature on rural roads, workers spotting it perched silently on rooftops, children swearing they saw it crouched in trees watching. People in Point Pleasant grew terrified. They kept their doors locked at night. Parents wouldn't let their children walk alone. Reporters swarmed the small town, publishing headlines that read, "Mothman terrorizes West Virginia." But here's where the story grows even darker. On December 15, 1967, just 13 months after the first sighting, tragedy struck. That evening, the Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Ohio, was packed with cars during rush hour. Without warning, the bridge collapsed into the freezing Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives in one of the worst bridge disasters in American history. And almost immediately, whispers spread. The Mothman had been seen on the bridge that very morning. Some swore the creature had perched on the steel beams, as if watching, waiting. Others believed its presence was an omen, a warning of disaster. It was winter in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, January of 1897. Snow covered the rolling hills, and smoke curled from the chimneys of the small mountain town. Life here was quiet, hard, and ruled by the land. But beneath the stillness of that winter, a dark story was about to unfold. A story so strange, it would become the only time in U.S. history where the testimony of a ghost was used in a murder trial. This is the story of Zona Heaster Shue, the Greenbrier ghost. Elva Zona Heaster was just 23 years old when she married a blacksmith named Erasmus Stribling Trout Shue in 1896. Trout was new in town, tall and confident, and he swept Zona off her feet. Some people whispered that he had a temper, but in a small Appalachian town, gossip was common, and Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, tried to keep her worries to herself. Only a few months later, on January 23rd, 1897, tragedy struck. Trout sent a young neighbor boy to his house on an errand. When the boy entered the home, he found Zona lying motionless at the bottom of the stairs. Her body was stretched out, her feet together, one arm across her chest, and her head tilted unnaturally to the side. The boy ran for help, but by the time the doctor arrived, Trout had already carried Zona upstairs to her bed. He dressed her himself in a stiff, high-collared gown and cradled her head as he wept. The doctor noted some odd bruising around her neck, but Trout insisted she had died from everlasting faint, what we would call a heart attack. The death was ruled natural. Zona was buried on a cold January day, and the town prepared to move on. But her mother could not. Mary Jane Heaster was convinced from the very beginning that her daughter had been murdered. She had never trusted Trout, and now every instinct screamed that something terrible had happened. So she prayed. Night after night, she begged for the truth, and soon the truth came, in a way no one could have imagined. Mary Jane claimed that her daughter's ghost began to visit her. 4 nights in a row, Zona appeared at the foot of her bed, glowing pale and sorrowful. Her spirit spoke, telling her mother the real story. Zona's ghost said that her husband was a cruel man. On the night of her death, they had argued because she had not cooked the meat he wanted for dinner. In a fit of rage, Trout grabbed her by the neck and snapped it with his bare hands. To prove it, the ghost turned her head completely around, showing the broken neck to her horrified mother. Mary Jane would later swear that the visions were as real as life itself. At first, no one believed her. A grieving woman claiming to see her daughter's ghost? Neighbors pitied her, but Mary Jane refused to back down. She marched to the local prosecutor and told him everything. And whether it was her persistence or the uneasy rumors spreading through town, the prosecutor finally agreed to exhume Zona's body. When doctors examined her remains, their findings shocked everyone. Zona's neck was broken, her windpipe was crushed, bruises covered her throat. It was clear that she had been strangled to death. Erasmus Trout Shue was arrested and charged with murder. The trial in Greenbrier County was unlike anything the small community had ever seen. Witness after witness testified about Trout's strange behavior, his violent temper, and his shady past marriages. But the most unforgettable testimony came from one person, Mary Jane Heaster. On the stand, under oath, she told the jury about her daughter's ghostly visits. She described Zona's spirit appearing night after night, telling her exactly how she'd been killed. Now the judge tried to keep the ghost testimony quiet, worried it would make the trial look ridiculous. But once the words were spoken in court, they could not be taken back. The newspapers went wild, calling it the Greenbrier Ghost Trial. And here's the thing, even without the ghost's words, the evidence was overwhelming. Trout's guilt was clear. He was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Trout never confessed. He died a few years later in the state penitentiary, his name forever tied to one of the strangest murder cases in American history. As for Mary Jane, she returned home, finally at peace. She always insisted her daughter had come back from the grave to tell the truth, and she never wavered from that belief until her own death. Even today, a small state historical marker stands in Greenbrier County. It reads, "Interred in this cemetery is Zona Heaster Shue." Her death in 1897 was presumed natural until her spirit appeared to her mother to describe how she was killed by her husband. The trial resulted in his conviction. This is the only known case in which testimony from a ghost helped convict a murderer. So what really happened in Greenbrier that winter? Was Mary Jane's story true? Did Zona's ghost really return to seek justice? Or was it simply a grieving mother's intuition, wrapped in a story that the jury couldn't ignore? We may never know for certain, but in the Appalachian Mountains, where folklore runs deep and the veil between the living and the dead feels thin, many believe the Greenbrier ghost still lingers, a reminder that sometimes the dead refuse to stay silent. If the Appalachian Mountains are known for their beauty, they are also known for their shadows. And in the heart of West Virginia, those shadows fall longest over a towering stone building that once held thousands of broken lives. a place where the air still carries the screams of the forgotten. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. It began in the mid-1800s. The asylum was built in Weston, West Virginia, designed to house only 250 patients. But like so many institutions of the time, it quickly became overwhelmed. By the 1950s, over 2,400 men, women, and children were crammed into its massive halls. The conditions were horrific. Patients with severe mental illness lived side by side with people who suffered from nothing more than depression, anxiety, or alcoholism. The staff couldn't control the chaos, resources ran thin, patients went hungry, many were left unclothed, shivering in the cold stone corridors. Some were locked in cages, and the treatments, they were worse. Electroshock therapy, ice baths, lobotomies carried out with crude instruments. Countless people went in and never came out the same. Hundreds died inside those walls. Their bodies were buried in unmarked graves across the grounds. It's no wonder people say the asylum never let go of its dead. Even after the asylum officially closed in 1994, the hauntings began almost immediately. Paranormal investigators, staff, even tourists have all reported terrifying encounters. One of the most common stories is of a little girl named Lily. She was said to be born inside the asylum in the early 1900s, the child of a patient. She died young, but her presence has never left. Visitors claim to hear her giggles echoing through empty hallways. A ball left on the floor will sometimes roll on its own, as if unseen hands are nudging it back and forth. Then there are the darker presences. One ward is known for a figure nicknamed the Creeper. Witnesses describe it as a shadowy mass that crawls along the walls and ceiling like an insect. People who encounter it often report being overwhelmed with despair or suddenly feeling violently ill. Paranormal teams have recorded growls, whispers, and doors slamming in empty hallways. Others swear they've seen full apparitions. Patients in hospital gowns wandering aimlessly, vanishing when approached. Some even report being pushed, scratched, or choked by invisible hands. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a security guard who worked night shifts after the asylum was abandoned. He was walking his rounds when he heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw nothing, but the sound grew louder, closer, following him down the hall. Finally, he called out, "Who's there?" That's when he heard a woman's scream erupt from the darkness, high, shrill, and filled with terror. He ran out of the building and refused to work another shift. What makes the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum so disturbing isn't just the ghost sightings. It's the weight of the suffering that still hangs in the air. When you walk through its massive halls with peeling paint and rusted iron doors, you feel it. The silence isn't empty. It's thick, alive, like hundreds of eyes are still watching you. And here's the strange part. Many visitors claim the building itself seems to breathe. Shadows flicker where there should be none. Cold spots freeze you in place, even in the middle of summer. Some people swear they hear the rattling of old gurney wheels echoing down the corridors, long after the hospital shut its doors. Today, the asylum is a tourist site. You can visit on guided tours or, if you dare, spend the night on a paranormal investigation. Thousands of people travel there every year hoping to make contact with the spirits still trapped inside. But for locals, it's not entertainment. It's a wound carved deep into West Virginia's history. They know that the walls of Trans-Allegheny hold more than memories. They hold souls. So what really lingers in the asylum? Are these restless spirits the echoes of the patients who suffered and died there? Or has the cruelty, the pain, and the despair soaked into the very stones, giving birth to something darker, something inhuman? No one knows for certain. But those who step inside will tell you one thing. When the sun goes down over the Appalachian hills and the asylum's windows glow with moonlight, you can feel it. You are not alone.